Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? We're here on the shores of beautiful Lake Fork. Today, though, it's not that beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful in its own way, but it's got a lot of heavy mist and rain and mud and all kinds of stuff coming down and coming into it. And it's cold outside. It's miserable. And I have a cold inside my head. So I'm sorry if I sound weird and nasally. But I'm sitting here in Lake Fork Lodge with everybody's favorite co-host, Casey Smith. What's happening, dude?
Well, I'm rained out. So it's kind of bad because you can't get any work done, but it's kind of good because I can get some work done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've been getting a lot of stuff done around the house and just different business things I've been needing to take care of. I do know this. I can remember many days like today when I would get out of school, elementary, junior, senior, whatever, and thinking that I was going to go have a great day on the lake with my granddad, and it ended up being like 45 and misty, and you're just scrambling to catch a fish.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No, it's not really.
And I bet it's even worse for the dudes who travel from like Missouri or Illinois or whatever and come down here and fish, like all pumped about their like spring fishing vacation, and you get here and no, it's not 60 and sunny, it's 45 and rainy.
Yeah. It's like when we go deer hunting and it's 75 and sunny.
Yeah. And you kind of wish they could swap those a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no, it's actually let me so I knew that one day I was going to have a rain out day, but it was actually, 4 or 5 hours until the storm hit. So I went out and checked a few cards and set a new camera and stuff that morning. Got out pretty early and put the boots to it and covered a bunch of ground real fast. But found a few things. Shot a rabbit. So that's fun. Found a dead head.
Yep.
And
man.
had a pretty good card pull.
Yeah.
Which
we
I
did.
just shared with you.
Yes. Teenager's on there several times.
He is. He lives.
How
many times was he on there in deer season?
Between that one and the other camera, he's on there.
Well, let's say just the other camera. Just the first time. I think all I can remember is him being on there once.
Yeah.
That was in November whenever we were hunting elsewhere.
Yeah.
And ever since then, he's been a ghost. We were like worried about him being alive.
Yeah.
And then we picked him up on a different camera and then went back and checked this one, and he's on there quite a bit.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. It's still hard to put like a good pattern to what's going on, but I think Sogo's kind of East Texas hunting. We were talking with a buddy the other night after the live podcast that we did with Stormwater Creek, and he hunts private out in our area, and just basically across the board in East Texas, man, it's just tough. It's like big woods, but with like still a lot of food. You know what I'm saying? Like between the greenbrier, the different forbs, the acorns, like you've got you've got food everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It makes it tough to
Makes you a good hunter, though, man.
Yeah, I
love
think so. I think so too, man. I mean, it really makes you pay attention to every single detail, which is what we're doing with that card pool. We're really pouring over it and trying to figure out where is he bedding and on what winds, like, because there's not really like a food source to like say, oh, there's a destination food source they're going to end up on at night. So all the does are going to be going this way, and you can see that the buck trails go this way. Whatever. It's not as easy as that here. So we're really just trying to figure out where he's bedding more than anything, so we can get close and hope for a day when he's going to be cruising for does, and it's going to be cold.
Yeah. And what's cool is it's the end of February, and we really should have. Well, I wouldn't say we should have, but a lot of people's minds are on turkeys.
Yeah.
We're still talking about deer. So,
Yes,
but today we're actually going to talk about turkeys.
We are,
Yeah.
man. That's man, you did that so well. We've got a couple of really cool guests coming up here in a little bit, and we did this podcast actually. It's been a while. We did this a while back, but we've got a biologist that works for NWTF, Farrell. She works really closely with the state on a lot of their projects, reintroducing the eastern turkey here in eastern Texas, and we've got what's his title?
Regional director, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay, Jackson Harris, regional director. So he basically told me, he's like the guy that makes the parties happen. So
I believe him.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a cool dude. They've got a lot of good input, and we'll get to that here in a second. I guess one thing I would mention is that, even though we've been going out a few times and doing a few things, hanging some trail cameras and stuff like that, they've been kind of hurried attempts. So we're just trying to get our cameras out with a couple weeks left before shed season. Mm-hmm. And so we really haven't done a lot of PLC documenting or anything like that. But we have released 2 PLCs from this postseason so far. And one's got a couple of really cool, really big deer, pictures in it from our little circle through the Midwest several weeks ago. And the other has got some kill shots in it. We were shooting all kinds of deer out of season. No, we shot squirrels and rabbits and did a little small game thing. So if you haven't seen that, go to our YouTube channel. And we just now started our new playlist called the 2018 Public Land Chronicles. And there's a squirrel right there. And we've got another playlist that we have started called Element Evals, and it's all gear reviews. And we've put 4 or 5 of those out so far. They're fun, man. Fun to put together, fun to do, and I don't know, hopefully fun to watch. I've had some friends say that they're fun to watch, but I think it's just because we're making fun of ourselves the whole time, and they like to do that too. So those have been good. Other than that, I'm trying to think. I hadn't really done anything but moving my house. So
yeah, you've been a busy man.
Yeah, I have. I'm starting to try to recover right now. We've been, like I said, miserable weather and rain and just moving in those conditions. You know how you and I stayed out till like 10:30 one night. It was like 35 degrees and raining on us, and we were working on some things so the house could close. And I've basically done that during the last several days. So like night before last, it started raining about 3, and I got my feet wet, and it started raining on me, and I got my body wet, and until 1 a.m. I didn't dry off. And it was like, just above freezing all day. So it's probably why I don't sound good or feel good right now. But hopefully our plans in the next few weeks here are to let these cameras soak that we've got. Do we have all our cameras out?
We have every camera that I know of, at least, out.
Yeah.
We kind of had some discrepancy on like which cameras we had and did not have the other day, because part of that problem is that we got a bunch of cameras stolen last August, and it's kind of like messed with our inventory. But we're gonna let those sit for a while and then pick them all back up. Probably late March, something like that. Make sure we got every buck shed on there, and then kind of inventory, clean up, and do everything, kind of reevaluate, and see who's on there. Yep. I'm pumped.
We've had the pool that you just had. We had a deer that we didn't expect at all to see on that camera from a different area, And so it's exciting to kind of see them come through. And I don't know, it hurts you from a standpoint of like mentally. You're just like, how do we pattern any of these deer if they're going to move that much and across all these different barriers that you assume are barriers, you know? And it's crazy. But I guess the one thing you hope for is that at least out here you can hunt in the rut and, you know, have deer come through long rut, you know, and so hopefully you have deer that'll move in and out, and one day you're sitting there, whether it's your target buck or not, it's a good deer and it's on public land and you shoot it, you know, or you pass it. I don't know.
That's true. That some people do that.
Yeah, they do. They do. Some people. One person, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's our plans. Kind of. We're hoping to get to go do a turkey hunt, but I don't know if we're going to end up doing that or not.
We don't have a great plan for it right yet. It's just such a struggle because I'd like to, but all the turkeys live pretty far from us. Or if they're closer to us, they're expensive to go hunt. You know, and I'm not into that. Like, I like to hunt on permissions or on public land. It's how I like to do things. Yeah. Because my pocketbook tells me that's how I like to do things, you know. But, yeah, we'll see. We're going to try to make something happen. I don't know. That's still a little ways off. Turkey hunts you can throw them together a little bit better than you can whitetail hunts sometimes. You know, it doesn't take near as much planning, and you can kind of scout as you hunt kind of thing. Yeah. But not to say that if you want to do some preseason turkey scouting, that's a pretty good idea. I wish I had that opportunity.
Definitely.
But I'm probably going to do a little public land scouting here, maybe tomorrow. I'm going to be rained out for pretty much 40 days and 40 nights, I think. So it's I found a couple places that are a different direction that I kind of would like to go look at, might drive to, and at least kind of do a little window time. Better than staying at the house all day, because that kind of drives me crazy.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I saw the biggest buck I've ever seen in our home area yesterday in the middle of the day eating because it's cold and wet. And I got pictures of him.
Yeah, I just got those in the email whenever I was on the way over here, actually. He looks really good.
Dude, I couldn't get my passenger window down. It wouldn't go down.
It'd come in.
And it was raining anyway. And so, like, most of my pictures are not that great. They're, you know, through a window and it's raining and stuff. But dude's big. Yeah. He's got, like, 6 typical on one side. And I couldn't tell how many on the other side, but I think he's got 5 on that side.
You know, I might actually put a picture of that deer on the story tonight.
Be cool.
Just to see what people think of it.
Dude, the bad thing is I didn't get a great picture of him.
Yeah.
Like, I wish you could. I've got some more pictures I'll show you that are raw, that are like, you can see his main beams and how far they kick back and then go forward and how heavy he is and everything. And some stuff when his head was down, he didn't hardly put his head up at all. Yeah. And so, like, it was hard to get a good picture. But, like, even the picture that I sent you with his head up, like his good side doesn't look that good. It's kind of short looking because the tines are headed back towards the camera and stuff. But
we need to go do some door knocking and see if we can't squirrel hunt.
Dude, shed squirrel hunt.
Well, maybe not include the shed part, just the squirrel part.
Exactly.
But, you know, if you find something.
Yeah. Throw it on the backpack.
That's right.
Yeah. Dude, he's a toad, man. I mean, this deer, I don't know. I'm not the greatest at guessing deer here in our area because, you know, like score-wise, because I hadn't hunted a lot of them and seen them up close. But I just don't see how this deer doesn't make gross in the 150s. I mean, he's big.
Yeah, he's a stud, man. He's got some mass.
So
you know I would like to know, and the next time we talk to a QDMA guy, we need to ask this question, but if there are areas of the country that have greater body size discrepancy than others. You know, because I know that even in the Midwest, there's bigger body deer and smaller body deer, but it just seems like here, man, some bucks are just little baby bodies, and then some of them are, you know, pretty good size. You know,
we recently got pictures of a couple of 8s that are like giant bodied, like the one over at TL.
Yeah, tank.
Golly, this new buck showed up, and this dude, he's in there with some Texas does, you know, or whatever, but like, he still looks like just a big old, like a Midwestern buck, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's hard to tell. Like, you see that deer, and then you see some other deer. Like, we've had some deer that, I think we might have mentioned this before, but he's basically like a spike but they're like shaped like main beams, you know, and they're not that big still, but, like he looks like there's no way he's like a year and a half buck, but his antlers show that he would be like first rack, you know. And so I don't know. It's so crazy, the deer hunting world. It's so fascinating to think about it all and look at it all and try to make assumptions when, I mean, half the time we're probably, all of us are wrong about things, you know. I mean,
That's right, man. It's what makes it fun, though, because there's no, like, set answers.
yeah. And speaking of QDMA, like they do these little email, like quizzes or what, not quizzes, but they poll the audience, like, how old do you think age this buck, you know? And, man, there's like several times where people, like, the majority of votes go towards this age class, and then the QDMA experts are like, well, actually, we think he's this, you know, or whatever. And just that happens, you know. It's just people don't know from subregion to subregion what those deer look like and body-wise and everything. And anyway, it's a blast trying to figure all this stuff out. It's also sometimes frustrating, a bit like fly fishing.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited to do some of. I'm a little bit more jacked up about that than turkey right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, turkey's frustrating like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hard, but also fun to figure out sometimes. So maybe we can talk to some experts who might give us a little insight.
I'm all about it, man. You ready to get to it?
Yep.
Let's go to the interview. All right. We are in Tyler, Texas today at the Roast Social Kitchen. That is per the request of one of our lovely guests, Annie Farrell. What's happening?
What's up?
Doing all right?
I'm doing good. How
You're not
about y'all?
tired, are you?
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm loaded
You've
up
had
on coffee.
Plenty of coffee. Any relation to Will?
Nope.
No?
Spelled differently.
It's unfortunate.
Oh, man.
I did notice that. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure though, you know, you never
There must
know.
be a lot of nice Farrells in East Texas, though. I get it all the time.
Do you?
Do you?
I don't know any Farrells. Except for swine. That's much different, right?
Yeah, that would be different, I think. So why don't you give us a little rundown who you are, where your background is. And,
Well, I'm Annie Farrell, like you said. I'm the district biologist for East Texas for National Wild Turkey Federation. I'm originally from Georgia, graduated from the University of Georgia, go Dogs.
Yep.
Moved to Texas because my husband works for Texas Parks and Wildlife. He moved here 5 years ago, and I just followed him and lucked out with this job. I have a background studying turkeys for my master's degree in grad school and fell in love with the species. And so this job came open, and I jumped on it. It's the best.
It's the best.
It is.
That's good to know.
That's cool.
That's good.
Something
I
to
like
aspire towards.
I love it when people like their jobs, you know?
Yeah.
I would hate to be miserable in my
It's
job.
nice
every day.
waking up every day loving what you do.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'm in the same boat. Over here across from me.
As opposed to me, who like really doesn't like what he does a lot for a living, but
So
has
that-
a lot of fun on the side.
That's right, yeah. So we've got KC Smith over here, as usual, the co-host. What's happening, dude?
Hey, just on my second cup of coffee, so I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm thinking about pizza is what I'm thinking about.
Ooh, I can smell it a little
It
bit.
smells so good in
So
here.
they've got a oven over there that's like kind of like that wood fire, but it's also stainless steel. So
See,
it's like new meets old kind of thing. It's kind of cool.
they define roasting on their website.
Oh,
which
do
is cooking, I guess, like dry heat or dry air, essentially. Is
That's how you roast
whatever.
things.
I don't know. It's the definition of roasting. So I would imagine it's some kind of similar
Convection.
fire roasted convection oven deal or something.
Yeah, sounds
So,
good.
Yeah. Anyway, diagonal adjacent to me, we've got Mr. Jackson Harris. The reason we've set this thing up, basically.
What's up, man? Glad to be here.
Yeah. So what's your background, man? We've been talking a little bit, but fill us in.
Sure. Well, I work for the National Wild Turkey Federation as well. I'm the regional director that covers East Texas. And I'm from Southeast Alabama originally, so when Annie said "Go Dogs," I kind of got thrown back in my
Hurt your
seat.
heart a little bit.
It did, yeah. But we manage. Annie and I work together pretty well for two adversarial SEC fans. Annie always works on how we keep turkeys, doing well, populations doing well. And I work with the volunteers and members of our organization, the NWTF, to keep them engaged and save the habitat, save the hunt. So she's on the ground work, and I get to work with the people who help support her across East Texas and the country.
Yeah. And you're based out of College Station now, huh?
Yeah. I work pretty much from just north of College Station all the way up to the Red River. So most places in northeast Texas have a local NWTF chapter somewhere nearby, and I get to work with those volunteers. So if we're bragging about having a good job, I think I've got one that ranks up there with the best of them.
Yeah.
One of the best.
It sounds fun. One of the best.
Man, NWTF is a good place to work.
That's it.
Everybody likes it there.
Yeah, you should get a job with us, just not mine.
If you leave East
it.
Texas, you can have one of our jobs.
There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah, go somewhere
Yeah.
besides Texas, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got a heavy Texas listening base, but we have, all 50 states are listening to us right now. So we want to kind of just bring this broad perspective out to them at first, and then maybe kind of fill them in on our situation here in East Texas, especially. But I guess the first thing I'd start off with is I go to Subway and I get a turkey sandwich. What's the difference in that turkey that I'm eating and what you guys are working with right now?
Well, I'm no expert, but those are not wild turkeys.
Well, obviously there's domestication in there.
Right. We're working with the wild turkeys and
Right.
mainly eastern wild turkeys in East Texas.
Right.
A few Rios here and there, but we're mainly easterns.
Do you work outside of East Texas at all?
We work closely with our partners around the edge of the territory, but the country split up kind of with a network of field staff, and
Right.
Annie and I are both on field staff. I'm on the volunteer side, and she's on the conservation side. So, no, I'm specifically working with those volunteers, but we've got some great chapters in Oklahoma, other parts of Texas, Louisiana and stuff, all across the country. But
Right.
but it's a nice little network. We stay abreast of what each other are up to and steal good ideas from each other, pass them around.
Yeah. So, we're talking about the turkey sandwich from Subway or whatever. So, how did we go from like this beautiful brown bird that does all these cool things to this big white fat thing? Like, how did that process happen, and why does the president pardon a big white bird at Thanksgiving? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how that became what people know as a turkey.
You're stumping me already.
I would say
I don't know a whole lot about agriculture. What about you, Jackson?
Yeah, so obviously it's a lot like other domesticated animals we've got, right? Obviously, the cows that get turned into your Big Macs or your T-bones are not the same exact variation as their ancestors, right? And there are some, we're talking about the difference between wild turkey and domesticated turkey, although I will say most people who get confused about which wild turkeys we advocate for are confused about whether or not they're in the woods or in a bottle. I get a lot of wild turkey bourbon fans, and they're a huge national sponsor of ours. And honestly, I might have a better job recruiting people if I was like, no, we advocate for the bourbon. But yeah, we're talking about the difference between a wild turkey and a domesticated turkey. And there are domesticated turkeys, and you can still get domesticated turkeys that look very similar to a Rio wild turkey or an eastern wild turkey in their coloring and feathers and stuff. But it's the same way with other sorts of poultry or livestock or whatever. They've just kind of been developed for that specific reason of eating and being able to survive on a farm rather than in the wild and that sort of stuff. But
So
yeah, they're cousins. They're in the same family.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
just very distant, and ours are more fun to hang out with.
Yeah, no kidding. So would you say that that's like a branch off of the Eastern, since that was probably the first encountered by Europeans, and then just the domestication process started from there?
I'll make a fool of myself if I try to guess that one, but there's kind of domestic specialty species that are in Caribbean islands all up and down the East Coast, in Mexico and stuff. They kind of got passed around. You start to throw in going over to Europe and being domesticated and then coming back, and you're talking several hundred years ago now, and the lineage of the current domesticated turkey that turns into your butterball, I'm not positive on. But I'm glad where they've arrived at, because that's delicious. But the ones that still walk around the Piney Woods region of East Texas are also very delicious, but a little bit more difficult to get your hands on.
A little
A little more lean too.
Yeah. So, okay, so we're talking about wild turkeys, and there's 4, maybe 5 varieties of wild turkey.
We have 5 subspecies.
5
across the
subspecies.
country.
Okay, so can you tell me the difference in a species and a subspecies, and why that exists?
So they're all wild turkeys, Meleagris gallipavo, all Meleagris gallipavo,
Boom.
and then
There you go.
they develop as they live in different habitats. They're all specialized to something else based on their DNA. They're going to have slight differences in their DNA, and they have scientists have just figured out that all of these in the southeast that have this similar DNA are different enough from these in Texas and Arizona, New Mexico, that they're both wild turkeys, but they can be different subspecies.
Sure. So can you tell me those 5?
Let's see. Eastern, Rio Grande, Merriam's, Gould's,
Oscillated.
Osceola isn't a...
Osceola.
Okay,
And
so...
oscillated would be
And Osceola is in Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's number 6 that we don't have in North America.
Right.
Or, I mean, we have North America, not in the U.S.
Not in the
Yeah,
U.S.,
hold on.
right.
we had an issue with this on one of our earlier podcasts where one of our buddies, Brian Koch, Ultimate Upland, he was asking. Okay, so he was asking about all the upland birds, and he was like, he acted like he knew how many species there were. And so we were going through all the stuff, and he's like, and then you got the turkeys, you got the, and eventually it turned into that there was an ocelot somewhere in there.
Yeah, you got real confusing words between
Oh my
oscillated
gosh.
and ocelot.
Isn't that a cat?
It was hilarious.
That's
yes.
right. Which probably preys on Rio Grande turkeys in far south Texas. So
Very
possible.
all back around. So, and this is just kind of a personal question, but a oscillated is actually a separate species or no? I thought I'd heard that, but I didn't know for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually,
Yeah.
I don't speak Spanish. I'm sure that information is.
You'd have to
That's
ask
probably
him.
widely
Yeah.
known in Mexico. But,
They're cool. We saw one mounted at DSC the other day, and it's
They're
like
beautiful.
Yeah.
awesome bird.
Sure are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be super cool to say. So you're talking about the separate subspecies, and you said a while ago that we have easterns and then some Rios here. What causes? I mean, what keeps them from hybridizing and there being a really blurred line between there, as opposed to here's the line of that's a Rio and this is eastern.
Well, you're right. They have been hybridized
Yeah.
in East Texas, and the line kind of is blurry.
Okay.
We're right on the edge of Eastern territory. We're right on the edge of Rio territory. And when they are together, they're all wild turkeys, so they're going to breed.
Yeah.
the same is true up through Oklahoma. I mean, people go there to hunt the hybrids. I mean, just to have a notch on their belt, as it were.
So where do they draw the line? Is it like Interstate 35 or like?
Well, my line that I operate on is 35 East. And the line is very blurry, I would say, just west of here in
Okay.
Tyler.
Okay.
Where you kind of get the trees get a little shorter, they get a little more sparse. The line is kind of blurry on that. So
Right.
if you look at the habitat, you can see that it's going to be curvy all the way down to the coast, and you're going to see them all in
Right.
one spot.
So I'll direct this to Jackson. Why does culture? Do you fly fish at all or fish?
Yeah,
You
fish,
some?
yeah.
Okay. Y'all were mentioning bass fishing earlier. Okay. So everybody flocks to Lake Fork in March and April and May because the fish are spawning.
Sure.
And it's probably, I would say, widely accepted that it's okay to fish for bass on the beds. Some people don't like it, some people don't do it, but I would say the majority of bass fishermen love that period of time. But when it comes to trout fishing, trout guys do not like fishing for trout on the reds, which is their bed, and there are other, lots of game departments in different states, especially across the West, try to set up their rifle seasons outside of the rut, stuff like that to protect the species. Why is it widely accepted that spring turkey is the time to do it, the thing to do? Culture accepts that as being an okay thing, as opposed to, what some of these guys out west to think maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think you've cultural is different state to state, region to region, right? So I mean, there are some folks in other parts of the country that would say, "Man, fall turkey hunting is where it's where it's at." Where I grew up, I mean, at the end of spring turkey season, my dad would always give my mom a bouquet of flowers just to thank her for putting up with him, getting up so early every day of the spring turkey season. And even if he didn't kill a bird, I mean, that was secondary to if he could hear a bird before he had to go to work that morning, it was going to be a really good day.
Yeah.
And my point is this. I mean, there's a huge Rio population, west of here as you get out towards the middle part of the state in Texas, and there's guys there that, there's fall turkey seasons, and they view it differently because they see them while they're deer hunting or whatever. I'm all for people getting outdoors. I'm all for people hunting the turkeys legally, obviously. And whatever gets them going, I'm all for. But, I would say there is something special about just the feel of a spring morning and hearing the turkey gobble and everything's bright and green and
Nothing else is going on too much, hunting wise,
Yeah, I mean that's turkey season. I mean that's a big chunk of the calendar when you at least where I come from, and I think that's the case in some parts in East Texas. And what we'd like is to keep giving people more and more counties the opportunity to have a turkey population that will allow a hunting season, that will allow kids to get into it when like I did when I was much younger and feel that and experience that and pass that on. Right now we're still working hard though, and that's where Annie comes in. I think what's important to touch on so far as culturally goes and what makes sense at hunting season, that sort of thing, is that biology dictate hunting seasons, dictate when people get out and hunt for the birds and that sort of thing instead of culture. What you don't want is to say, well, our culture is such that we've always done it this way. We've always had our deer season here, or we've always had our turkey season here. This is when turkey season is coolest. If that doesn't make sense biologically, then it doesn't really matter because we got to care about the next generation. That's why people like Annie are so important to not only the people who like to hunt, but the people who have to make the laws relating to it.
Right. Sure. So as a follow-up to that, and this might be more towards you, Annie, it's pretty common practice that Rios are hunted in the fall, but Eastern's not. Is there a biological difference there that kind of makes that up?
Well, in East Texas, there's a reason why turkeys are not hunted Easterns are not hunted in the fall. They're only hunted in the spring. There's only 15 counties open, and it's only open for less than a month. And that's to help the Eastern wild turkeys because we want to be able to see them and I would like for them to become a nuisance species, frankly, in East Texas, because, all across the Southeast, I was born and raised in Georgia. I went to school in Mississippi. They are all over the place, and you don't see that here, and so I'd like to see that happen.
Sure. It's funny you say that because, I just got back from the Texas Hill Country, going down there and doing a doe hunt, which was great. And you see turkeys, everywhere. And the guy I'm there with, it's his family ranch, they hold them in a lower regard than what I really would like to see because they're just just stuff that's out there. Yeah, they're just like a buzzard or a roadrunner or something. They're just so used to them. And it's just such a stark contrast because there's a turkey. Around if we were to see a turkey on the way here today, we would have freaked out. Yeah. Well, partially because it'd been a really great omen because we're coming to talk to y'all. But it's just not something that you commonly see. It's just kind of funny to see that cultural difference. Between those two birds and two subregions, of the state, I suppose. Yeah.
So do the biologists think that they can keep better tabs on the harvest with just a spring season, or why do they shut off the fall season?
Right now, they just want to give turkeys the best chance that they can to survive at this point.
So, okay, if that's the case, why not just take the seasons away?
Well, in some counties, they are evaluating taking seasons away.
Yeah.
And that's why there are only 15 counties open, because those counties, there's a lot of science that goes behind the scenes of establishing seasons and where they're going to open them. Yeah. And so in those counties that are open, there's a enough established population of turkeys.
Do you feel that it also is kind of like a tool to say that if we can encourage people to hunt these birds, they will care about the birds, so that it will encourage conservation? As I feel to me, I don't ever get a chance to hunt chocolakas, okay? And there's a little bird, we talked about it before. They're way down on the in South Texas, and I don't know a hoot about chocolaka conservation. You know what I'm saying? And it's because I don't have any hunter opportunity at the bird. But if there was a chocolaka season in East Texas, I might look it up and see what they're all about, and then realize they're nowhere near here. But you know what I mean by that, though. Do you feel that y'all, in conjunction with wildlife authorities, you kind of set those seasons to say, hey, let's make sure there's a hunter interest
the
in
value
this.
placed upon the animal. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think you see that since the days of Teddy Roosevelt. It's been the same ever since then. Is the great conservation success story that is North America, and in particular the wild turkey as well. The correlation between hunters and success of a species is direct, and That being said, I will say that we've had such amount of success with NWTF and doing habitat and repopulation works that where we've been miraculously successful since 1973 in New England. We're still doing work here, repopulation in East Texas. But in New England, they got so many birds now that my counterpart up there, the regional director up there, runs into problems where he's like, why do we need to care about the turkeys? There's so many of them, right? And there was like FedEx or UPS couldn't deliver to a neighborhood in Ohio last week because they were getting pecked off people's front porch by wild turkeys. And obviously those people are like, I'm not paying money to save these birds. But on the flip side, the people I talk to are on the opposite side. They say, well, I'm just not going to give my time to put into this organization because I'm not a turkey hunter yet. So there'll always be that. We just got to strike a happy medium.
Yeah, sure.
I heard I had a buddy from Seattle that was down here was it last week, I guess, and he lives obviously up in Washington. He said that I don't know what their title is, but the Fish and Game Department essentially in Washington is paying almost like an insurance company paying for property damages from wild turkeys right now. They're paying
What's that like?
civilians. Yeah, I mean,
we don't know any Texas.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
such a crazy concept to even think about. First of all, I can't see that any game department should have the money or budget for that,
Yeah.
And then, on top of that, that amount of turkeys, can't
kidding.
believe it.
We have that for mockingbirds. Can I get that for mockingbirds on my car, mirrors?
They're running into my windows.
Yeah. So on that point that you're making about why should we conserve turkeys when there's a ton of them, right? In some of these places. We went this summer to the TRCP Media Summit in Minnesota, and we talked a lot about the Farm Bill and a lot about sage-grouse conservation. And the point of sage-grouse conservation was that just because this, kind of the base level, and then it gets deeper, but just because they're doing good right now, it doesn't really mean they're doing good. It's just a good year, right? And then kind of the deeper thing was that when you conserve sage grouse, you're actually conserving all of these other things that inhabit where the sage grouse is, and it's just kind of like the poster child for that, ecoregion or whatever.
Yep.
Is that kind of how the turkey conservation goes?
You could look at a turkey as an umbrella species like you were describing the sage grouse, because if you're conserving for wild turkey, you're also managing for the endangered red cockaded woodpecker, the Louisiana pine snake. You're also managing for white-tailed deer. They're all going to
bobwhite quail.
Bobwhite quail. You're managing for all those different types. So, depending on the person that you're talking to, if they're really into endangered species or other big game species, you can talk to them about that. Well, if we're managing for turkeys, we're also going to be ivory-billed wood pecker species.
Sure.
So you should support us and help us manage for wild turkeys.
You're telling me if we manage for the turkeys, then the ivory-billed woodpecker will come back,
exactly.
right? Yes.
No.
Right.
No. Don't quote me on that one.
I hear that as something that people say a lot about, why they're not getting involved or whatever. But I also see a lot of stickers in East Texas for our partners at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I'm like, well, obviously there's still people out here who care about the mission overall. Obviously, we're not in the Rocky Mountains, so you're not going to see a Rocky Mountain elk here in Tyler. But, you should still play a role in that organization and a lot of the other ones. Same thing with, members of CCA in Nebraska. Obviously, they probably don't get down to the coast often. My point is this, is if I've got clean water in East Texas, do I not need to worry about clean water in Wyoming? If I've got, if there's no forest fires here, do we not need to worry about proper forest management in California? And obviously we do. What is good for habitat across North America is good for habitat across North America. And the inverse of that is anytime habitat or our hunting heritage is threatened, the NWTF and its members across the continent say, no, we care about that. Even if I don't have an eastern subspecies right now in my backyard in East Texas, I care about it enough because hopefully we'll get some soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to care about what the populations are elsewhere. I'm going to care about forest management and clean water and clean air.
Yeah. On that same note, we're doing a lot of work with pollinators.
Right.
And because if you're planting all these native warm season grasses, you're attracting pollinators, and that is a big area to focus on. Turkeys are going to be attracted as well as the monarch butterfly, which is a hot species right now, and, bees and so.
Well, that's actually something we talked about at TRCP with Garrett Long. So Garrett mentioned that I think he said a third of our food comes from
has something to do with pollinators.
Has something to do with pollinators,
Yeah.
essentially. So, and if we're losing them, that could be, as we're growing in population,
Yeah.
the human race could be a bad thing. So,
Listen, Annie's keeping us all alive right now.
I mean,
want
You're
y'all
welcome.
I want you to get that across.
that's why she's here, man. She was the last to be invited, but I had to weed my way through all you idiots,
Yeah.
No.
And then, I guess to take it on a micro level, like the pollinators are food for poults, right? Like
Yep.
right directly.
Yeah.
So like there's that as well. And it all just kind
The circle
of
of
makes
life.
sense as it's like Mufasa stuff.
It
right?
is.
It's Lion King over here.
So, on that note, what does a turkey need to, like, what are the things that turkey needs to survive and to proliferate? I mean, what is it to nest, to breed? What are these
Roost,
things that
yeah.
they need? Roost, yeah.
Turkeys are described as habitat generalists, where they're going to be using multiple different types of habitats throughout their life cycle. So, in the fall, they're going to be want to be in the forest, foraging on hard mast and, the acorns and the hickory nuts. And then, in the spring, they're going to have their broods, so they're going to be using more open areas. You need about 5 to 30 acres of open habitat that would be on the edge of a forest, usually, where they can go and have cover. They can have their insects that they're going to eat when they're younger.
Which are grasshoppers,
Beetles, spiders, ants. I mean, any little bug that crawls, they're going to
Really?
be trying to
So
eat.
if you're scared of bugs, then turkeys are your friend.
Turkeys are your friend.
What about those stink bugs? Do they eat those?
Probably. I haven't personally seen one eat a stink bug,
Yeah.
but
I bet if you got hungry enough, you'd eat.
Yeah. I don't know, man. He gets
know.
weird about smells. Like real weird about smells.
We talked about skunks on the way here, actually.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. So, through anytime I ever see turkeys or like the idea of turkeys comes up, you're always looking for, at least me, like a riparian environment, or like at least somewhere close to some source of water. Okay. Is that really the case? And if so, why aren't they doing better here, like in our subregion of East Texas? Because I feel like, we live in a place that is full of meadows and creek bottoms, right? Which in my mind is like classic turkey habitat, but they're not doing as great in some of the areas.
it is pretty classic turkey habitat. They
Yeah.
do need to be close to water, obviously, for hydration. They need those big bottomland hardwood trees to roost in. They need the forests to hide in, and they need the open areas to forage in. And what I have seen in my experience across East Texas is that it's just too thick. All the understories are just
Greenbrier and
yes,
yeah,
and
yep.
Yopon, and the woody understory is just too thick. And if you stand in a forest and you can't see through it from where you are, a turkey's not going to go there. If you're down at the turkey eye level and you can't see through it, it's definitely not going to go
Yeah.
there because it needs to see. That's what it counts on to find predators.
Yeah,
And
I was going to ask, is that a function of biology or like predation? Is it straight up predation kind of a thing?
predation would be a huge thing.
Yeah.
If they can't see, they're an easy target.
Right. Everything wants to eat them. They're tasty.
Yeah, they're tasty.
Right. I mean, they
Me
say
included.
that they say that if turkeys could smell, you would never be able to kill one.
Oh, I believe it,
Yeah.
for sure.
Ever.
I've seen turkeys at a corn feeder like 90 yards away, and you scratch your nose, and
Yeah.
They do. They do, man. Impossible to bow hunt from a tree stand.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So they rely on their eyesight. Did the lights just
Yeah, I
dim?
don't know.
a little bit, a little mood setting in there. It's good.
My eyes adjusted finally.
Yeah.
So they need just an open understory.
So how do you
And
manage
don't-
that?
Well, with proper management, with
Like burning?
thinning and burning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen enough in
Is
East
that
Texas
because
as a whole.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Turkeys are endemic. Like we should see a turkey right out here in this creek.
They
if there
have
wasn't a
existed
city.
here before, yes.
Okay, so does that mean that there was fire on the landscape before we came in, and that has changed?
Yes.
Okay, and that has altered the habitat quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's the fire historically fire would come through a landscape and take down all of that woody encroachment. And that's the kind of stuff that turkeys are not going to go into because they can't see. And so now people are just letting their properties grow up. East Texas is mostly private land. I want to say 97% or some crazy number like that, private
At
land.
least I would think.
At least.
And there are these small parcels of land as well. So there's not these huge areas that are burning or being thinned. Historically, timber was also thinner and not managed for loblolly and,
Right.
and all of that. So
is there another way besides burning to do that? I mean, or is
herbicide.
Yeah.
But you're going to have your best success if you burn and then herbicide.
Because the reason I asked that is because my dad, we never had property growing up, but my dad just bought like his first kind of hunting property. It's 30 acres, and he's like scared to death of burning. And I'm like, dude, we need to burn, you know. And it's so thick in there, and there's no turkeys. There's not any turkeys anywhere near us, but for deer, you know. And he's just scared to death to burn. And I don't know, like, I haven't done enough research on it yet to know how to ease his mind and to convince him to do it. I mean,
the best thing that I've ever heard, someone compared a rainforest to our ecosystems here. Rainforests need rain. Our landscapes need fire, like the rainforests need rain. So
that's cool.
You're right.
Yeah.
So we need fire, and I have heard that a lot. People are just afraid to burn.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we host a lot of landowner workshops where you can hold a torch yourself and light it off with a bunch of trained professionals there watching and making sure you're not going to light yourself on fire or, start a wildfire or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the NWTF hosts those workshops.
We host them with our partners.
Okay.
So like with Texas Parks and Wildlife or Texas A&M Forest Service.
Cool. Where's the place to find out where and when those are going on? Just on the NWTF website or?
Sure, there's a lot of, I'll put it this way, there's a lot of loose threads you could pull on and get the same result, right? So you can talk to Annie or I on the NWTF side, or you can talk to Texas Parks and Wildlife, somebody at the Forest Service. Even if you call up your local extension agent with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, they know when those workshops are going on, or they'll know who to call. I would say to respond to what your dad said, I think he's absolutely right. Fire obviously is never something you should do or take casually, but it's also very detrimental to not put fire on the landscape, right? It's going to look different, and it's a lot less scary to think about weeds growing and killing your habitat. But there are professionals, and they're literally there to help not only public lands get fire on the landscape, but to help private landowners learn how to do it themselves and to have people come out and help you do it and that sort of stuff. So
NWTF also has burn trailers in East Texas. We have, 3 burn trailers, I think it is, that has all the necessary equipment you could need to have your own prescribed burn.
So you just
And you can
carry
rent,
it out to your property?
You can rent that, yes.
Rent it
Oh,
and
that's
carry it out.
cool.
That's pretty neat.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Very
Does that
cool.
include
So-
like a little bobcat
Like
or
a-
something?
No.
That'd be sweet.
All of your torches and your shovels.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, what about a gobbler and 5 hens? Can you get that into it?
Little mini stocking program. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, so I've heard that, and you probably don't have the answer, it's just kind of anecdotal, but some state wildlife agencies have a fire guy, and like they're regional, and they'll send a guy out if you need. It might be Texas A&M Forest Service or something. I don't know for sure.
Texas A&M Forest Service and Texas Parks and Wildlife. Parks and Wildlife has their regional fire coordinators, and then they have their statewide fire coordinator. And so you can contact any one of them. There's also the private lands biologist with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and every county in East Texas has one, and they are a really great reference as well.
Yeah.
So does it cost to have them out there, or are they
No.
really?
So tax dollars paying for this guy's or
Right.
gal's job.
So you might as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
it's probably worth noting that, yes, it's tax dollars, but it's also your hunters and fishing license,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
goes to
Pittman
your
Robertson.
Texas
All of your
Parks and Wildlife.
Pittman Robertson
Yeah.
dollars will fund Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've already paid for it once, and to explain the connection between me and Annie and our partners on the state, obviously our volunteers that I work with raise money in their local banquets. They have a big party. That money goes into our super fund, which gets allotted to Annie. And Annie, talk a little bit about how we take that money that was raised at local banquets, leverage it, work with our partners, and then that becomes people who are on staff to help people put fire on the landscape.
Yeah, every year we take proposals of habitat enhancement proposals from our partners at Texas Parks and Wildlife and A&M Forest Service, and we are able to allocate a certain amount of our budget that comes from our banquets in Texas to these projects, and then they get leveraged with Pittman Robertson dollars from Texas Parks and Wildlife. So if someone requests $5,000 from us, we're able to apply another $15,000. So I think it's a $20,000 project in the end
Wow.
from Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Which is pretty cool. So your dollar that you spend on your bottomless beer cup or your raffle ticket at the NWTF banquet is actually like at least dollars, if not more, when it actually gets onto the landscape.
Yeah,
And
right.
so
That's cool.
That's how we work together, and we couldn't do it without Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Forest Service, and without our volunteers that show up and spend a little money.
And in 2017 alone, we spent $200,000 on habitat enhancement projects because we have that Pittman Robertson dollars.
Your region?
Yes, in East Texas. Well, all of Texas.
Okay, all of Texas.
Yes, so
Okay.
we have a West Texas district biologist as well, and so he had some of those projects.
Gotcha.
So does that go from 35 all the way out to the Trans-Pecos?
Yep.
That's the West Texas.
All of Texas. The
That's
entire
like-
state.
So there's two regions.
So
That is a
he has
huge
West
area.
Texas and Oklahoma, and I have East Texas.
West Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
This
Okay.
may be a good, so far as narrowing that down, obviously we went through a period where we were spending money wherever we thought a good habitat project could go, but Annie can tell us a little bit about more about our what we call our focal landscapes, which are our priority areas for putting the most money for the most impact in the most needed places.
Okay.
Right. So we have 6 focal landscapes, and we're located in the southern piney woods. That's our focal landscape in East Texas, and pretty much all of East Texas
Yep.
covers the southern piney woods. Whereas in West Texas, he has what are they? Oh shoot.
Everest
Different.
Plateau, stuff like that?
Great open spaces.
Okay.
That's what their focal landscape is called. And then within that, we have, that's America's Big Six.
Yeah.
And then we have inside that are focal landscapes. And so I am not positive on the number, but I want to say there's 8 focal landscapes in Texas. East Texas is pretty much all covered by the southern piney woods. And then he has like the Canadian River Basin, and I can't
Which
tell you.
is in Oklahoma, right?
Right, it goes through the panhandle of Texas
Okay.
and Oklahoma.
Lake Meredith is on the Canadian River.
That's
up
right.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically that money we raise every year and that gets leveraged isn't spread completely across the state of
Right.
Texas. It's put wherever it's going to make the biggest
focused,
impact.
right?
That makes
It's
sense.
focused in these areas that our higher ups have deemed most important.
Most important because of the need for restoration, or because what are the stipulations? Do they explain that at all?
Well, yes, I'm sure. If you ask the question, they certainly do. Yeah, it's most important based on where do we have the greatest potential, right? So where are the areas
Okay.
that might border public lands, which means we
Yeah.
can work with private landowners in this area, and their property happens to butt up with public lands that we also have a hand in, kind of guiding the habitat processes there. And then all of a sudden, you've gotten a big chunk,
Yeah.
right? And so obviously you take out metro areas, which, if you start to look at a map, Texas is becoming more and more connected by metro areas. And so you take all that out, and then what you're left with based on, what do you call them? Not riparian zones, but watersheds. And it's basically based on different watersheds that need the most amount of work.
Okay, so interjection here, you just talked about urban zones. Like this summer, we were in downtown, in the city limits of Minneapolis, and saw turkeys.
Yeah.
And we can't even see them in the country around here. Like, why can that happen? I don't understand it.
Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah?
This boggles my mind on a daily basis because
Yeah.
I grew up seeing turkeys everywhere, and
Yeah.
so it confuses me too.
So,
And I don't have a good answer for that.
right.
Just they're turkeys, and they're just
They're
kinda
habitat
tricky.
generalists. They're going to live wherever. But
Yeah.
I say that, and then we don't have them in East Texas. So
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. Let's say you had a really, really hot pan or pot on top of the stove, right? It's very hot. If you drop a little water in there, it'll steam up immediately, right? Drop a little bit, it'll steam up immediately. It'll disappear, it'll evaporate into the air. If you pour a whole bunch of water in that pot, it'll sit there. If you poured enough water into that pot, it'll go over the sides. My point is this. I'm guessing that the habitat around Minneapolis has
Is
so
pretty
many
good.
turkeys that they're starting to overflow into
Okay.
areas that they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right now in some parts of East Texas, we're slowly putting in enough water to where it's not evaporating as soon as we get them into the landscape.
Okay, so
they started in Texas block stocking, where they would put 10 to 20 turkeys in 5 locations across each county. And now they've turned to this super stocking, where they're putting 80 turkeys in one spot and hoping that they are successful. And they are seeing more success from that.
So when did the first stockings start to happen? When did they start focusing, going, we need turkeys here in East Texas?
Well, the super stockings started in 2014, and we've stocked over 650 turkeys since then in East Texas, just East Texas.
But prior to that, when they were doing the 5 to 10,
in
is that
Texas,
in the 90s?
I'd say that was the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
You weren't around then.
I was not.
And that's
Not
all
in
within
Texas.
Just, I think we're celebrating. This is our 45th year, I guess is the math. We started in '73, so that is a very small chunk of time in which we've gone across the entire country. In 2004, we had reached our goal. We had wild turkeys in 99% of inhabitable lands in North America. And that was pretty impressive because when we started in '73, it wasn't just for kicks. It's because somebody had to do something or we weren't going to have any turkeys.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you're talking about these drops of water and releasing birds and stuff. Where are you getting these birds from? Are we, like, capturing them or,
These birds, these eastern wild turkeys that we're getting are coming from Iowa, Missouri, North Carolina, West Virginia.
Okay.
I think in the past they've come from
Can we-
Kentucky.
So Missouri has a bunch then. How come they don't allow hunting in the afternoons for them? I don't understand.
So that's where you go back to, like, that cultural thing
Yeah.
more than, right?
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
assume.
you're right. Yeah, again,
They think it's unfair, I guess.
I don't know exactly the policies and how that works, but I'm guessing that Missouri's just like every other state, and at the end of the day, you obviously want to work with biologists and what they say needs to be top priority. But it's politics, man. Yeah, and if somebody says, well, I don't believe in hunting on Sundays, and if there's enough people in your state that think that, then you're probably not going to hunt on Sundays either.
Yeah.
And that's the case in some places in the country. So, yeah, it is. At the end of the day, culture does still play a major role in it, but science should always be prioritized.
Is there
obviously.
something to where, like, captive bred birds don't do as well? I know that's kind of how it is with quail and sage grouse and stuff. Is that how it is with
They
turkeys too?
tried that and nixed it because when you're breeding birds and then releasing them, it's never a good idea in any species.
Because
really.
of, like, disease?
And they're almost domesticated at that point if you're
Yeah.
breeding them and releasing them
Yeah.
into
And
the
this
wild.
was
They're
back in
not-
the day. These are lessons
Right.
we've learned.
Right, a while ago.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, let's be frank. Turkeys are not, like, super smart. They just have great instincts, right?
Right.
So, like, if you're watering them down
They're like the smartest
further,
dumb bird I've
Yes.
ever witnessed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, on that, like, are they like a animal where if you can reach a certain population goal, then you're good? Like, they will continue to breed, but like they're like everything wants to eat a turkey, right? That's why that's partly why they're there. So bobcats and coyotes and hawks and everything have something to eat, right? So, like, if you can get the population levels to a certain point, will they self-stabilize at that point in time? Is that the idea or the goal?
The idea is to reach a carrying capacity where they can self-stabilize, but we aren't even close to that right now in East Texas.
The other
least.
variable there is that the reasons that we don't have turkeys in East Texas anymore from when they were here way back, those still exist, right? Because we were
Right.
just talking about urbanization. We were just talking about
People.
and having access to the resources that they need. And there's humans everywhere in Texas, and they're very proud to be here in Texas. But the turkeys don't care about that. Yes, I think you're right. If we got to a certain population, yes, but we'd still be battling the same things that made the population go away to begin with.
Conservation never stops.
Yeah.
So 2004 was our peak, and y'all told me not to be depressing, but 2004 was our peak, but we've dropped a considerable amount, something like 15% just in the last several years.
Across
So
the country.
and so in Easterns, I think, are probably the most slippage. I don't really know, but going back in the wrong direction.
Biological term.
Yeah, dropping. Obviously, I don't get paid for that part. But Easterns are primarily, they're particularly susceptible. But you got to stay vigilant. I mean, it's not exactly like other species that people really like to hunt. Turkeys take a lot of work to keep them going in the modern context of humans across North
Yeah.
So I guess we've talked about the urbanization within Texas and other places, and obviously, due to our anecdotes, we know they can exist there in a urban habitat. What are the other variables or the other factors that are affecting turkeys here for us in East Texas?
The biggest thing that I can harp on is the thinning and burning and habitat management. If we don't have the proper habitat, you're not going to have turkeys, and that's what we're seeing across East Texas.
So this is country boy slang right here, country boy talk.
Slippage.
But I've heard it's a lot of slippage. But I've heard, this is obviously not coming from biologists, but you hear all the time fire ants and wild hogs.
They're definitely playing a role because we don't have turkeys and we are stocking them. In order for them to be successful, you have to have successful nesting. And if you don't have successful nesting, you're not going to have a growing population. And so in the egg form, when they hatch, that smell gets released into the air, and fire ants will jump all over
Pretty
that.
quick.
Right. So if the poults cannot get up and moving fast enough, they're gonna get eaten by a fire ant. But if they can make it to that certain point where they are big enough, they're gonna just eat the fire ants.
Yeah.
They're gonna pick them right off the ground.
What does that mean? Like, is that hours or days or weeks, or, I mean, how does that look?
They would probably start eating fire ants within a couple hours. I would say if they're up and moving and they can eat, they're gonna eat the fire ants.
Okay, this is anecdotal as well, but I remember hearing this story like 15 years ago. Okay, the trout in the Guadalupe River in Texas, you know, a non-native species, but we all enjoy them because it's cool to have trout in Texas. Okay, they were eating fire ants, and it was killing the trout because that's not, you know, a non-native is eating a non-native, but like the ants.
So many non-natives.
This is what the world we deal in now. Thanks, Columbian Exchange.
I told y'all not to think so hard.
I know, but I could see it being problematic. Like, hey, that fire ant looks good, and then like, you know, it eats like 30 of them, they sting it on the inside and it dies. You know, I can see that world where that happening. Like I said, anecdotal, not really an answer needed. Okay, but let's take this like to the feral hog thing. I worked for 2 years for Wildlife Services and did feral hog control and coyote control and stuff down on the coast in Brazoria County, and I did quite a bit of feral hog control on adjacent properties, and we did aerial operations on some of the national wildlife refuges down there, and feral hogs would decimate the alligator nests down there. And I can only assume that it's a fairly similar nesting situation, right? And you have a hen that leaves the nest during the day to go find a tom and comes back. Well, it's not like a hen's going to fend off too many hogs anyways, but like, you know, you're leaving a nest unprotected. I can only imagine that hogs are super tough on turkeys.
Turkeys are not too defensive.
Yeah.
They're not going to fight off a hog, even if they have poults. They're just going to let them.
Yeah.
Their main instinct is to avoid.
Yep.
And so with hogs, they're not necessarily targeting turkey nests, but if they come across one, they're going to eat it because they're going to eat anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hogs are a factor, fire ants are a factor, but it's not the main reason you're not seeing turkeys.
If you say right now, we don't do anything about the fire ants or hogs, but we go and do slash and burn exactly how we should, turkeys will come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
cool.
that-
That's encouraging. That's encouraging news.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes, I think so, but it's going to take a lot of work to get to that point.
There's just a lot of people, a lot of
Yes.
landowners in particular, who are missing the forest for the hogs, as it were.
Yes.
Or for the fire ants, or for the whatever it is. And at the end of the day, like, if you have the opportunity to put fire on the landscape and properly manage what you can manage, because everybody that complains about hogs and says they're the reason for not having turkeys are also the people who say, well, you can't do anything about hogs.
Yeah.
But here's one thing you can do. Let's put fire on the landscape, and then we'll worry about everything else. But
Right.
it's not necessarily a death by 1,000 paper cuts type thing. Like, there's one big thing we got to worry about, and that's taking care of the Piney Woods landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's super fun to say, oh, hogs are the problem, let's go shoot them, but not shoot all of them because we want them around, right? But it's a whole lot harder to self-reflect and say, hey, I actually need to burn my property.
Yeah, and try to do work.
Yeah,
Try
exactly.
to get out there and
opposed to
cut
buy
and
new
stuff.
thermals and go play at night, right?
Yes,
You know?
exactly.
People
So-
talk all the time about the predator control and the feral hog
Yeah.
control, but if you kill all the predators, more predators are just going to move in.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's said that a million times. I can kill so many pigs, and they're still going to be there.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean,
You have to kill 70% of the population in a year to even maintain your current feral hog population.
and I think we're killing
because-
5 to 7% of feral
Right.
hogs in Texas a
Right.
year. So let's talk about that for a second. You know?
But are they gonna grow to the point though where they are a problem for turkeys, and there's no way to have them recuperate
hogs.
without
Hogs
doing
are
harm
already
to
a problem.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm saying like because
But-
you said that if you didn't do anything with the hogs, that you could do the slash and burn, and turkeys would come back to the landscape. Well, what happens if the hogs just are twice as many?
well, then you have
in
another
10
problem
years.
on your hands.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that problem. I'd rather have the problem of hogs
Yeah.
on well-maintained landscape.
Yeah.
Right.
Because my
Agreed.
thought is they're a lot easier to kill when you ain't got all that underbrush.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
True. It's
That's what I was
very
going to say.
true.
Is if you're slashing and burning, you're not only are you
Right.
like increasing turkey habitat, but you're taking away places these hogs can hide, right?
Yeah.
So in turn, you're not. And this comes full circle to like the turkeys are the umbrella species. We manage for them. We take care of a lot of other things, right?
I hope we get to that problem where we are battling out an epic population of wild turkeys and an epic population of hogs that we already have. I would love for them to battle it out, but right now it's not even a fair fight. The turkeys aren't here because we don't have a place for them, and the hogs are here because they're hogs and they do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main thing is the habitat management, and that is our big fight right now in East Texas.
So, I mean, how do you, I mean, other than like getting here on the podcast or some kind of media and telling, explaining that to people, is there a way that NWTF is actively trying to inform landowners here in East Texas that, hey, we have to start burning stuff, like we have to do this? Is there any program that you guys are, or is there something you're talking about at, banquets or whatever? I mean.
Yeah, I think absolutely. So our mission has always been since the beginning that we're worried about conservation of the wild turkey and preservation of our hunting heritage. I mean, that's our mission. Right now we're saying it as save the habitat, save the hunt. And so we say that at every banquet. And honestly, these banquet experiences, which if your listeners aren't familiar, it's, you show up, you buy some raffle tickets, you have dinner with your buddies. You might bid on a live auction for, outdoors products or home goods or whatever, prints of wildlife or what have you. You have a good time and you go home. But that's really the honey to get the flies there so we can talk about the sport of wild turkey hunting, and we can also talk about what it means to save the habitat. And for, obviously, depending on what kind of position you're in, if you're a private landowner or a partner with our public lands managers and that sort of thing, then the more we can talk about those good practices, the better. But, yeah, we bring people into the flock through these banquets, through our outreach events. We have a program called Women in the Outdoors, a program called Wheelin' Sportsman for people with physical disabilities to be able to get out and enjoy the sport and learn about what habitat is good. And then we have a youth program we call JAKES, which is Juniors Acquiring Knowledge, Ethics, and Sportsmanship. So
that's convenient.
Ain't it, though? I'm almost positive we started with JAKES and worked backwards.
That's pretty good, man. That's
But anyway,
awesome.
education has from the beginning been a big part of it. We want people to know not only about the wild turkey, but about hunting heritage and how those two things work together. And since '73, that's been our MO. That's been what we do.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking about the super stocking
right.
Earlier, and I have a buddy who, let's see, he's got a buddy. We've got a mutual friend who is a biologist for the state, and I don't know if this is how this came about, but his dad, the biologist's dad, he started, I guess, some kind of initiative where he and my buddy Cody are collecting signatures from property owners, and there's a program. I had it on my phone, which now is in camera mode. But you need 10,000 acres worth of cooperative land ownership, and I guess this could be public or private. We don't have any public there in Rains County, other than, I guess, Lake Fork, but it's just the lake.
The water wouldn't count.
The water wouldn't count, I don't
They
guess.
can't roost out there in the street.
Just the water turkeys, yeah.
Water turkeys. Is that a part of National Wild Turkey?
Yeah, do y'all manage those? Because we'd like to kill a few, I think.
Yeah.
So it has to do with some kind of an upland initiative, I guess, Texas Parks and Wildlife is dealing with. And I'll read over this a little bit. But you need 10,000 acres worth of signatures. And contiguous, yeah, it has to be contiguous. So he's passing that on to me at this point. But I think the signatures are already there. So all I have to do is submit this paperwork. I'm not exactly sure how that goes, but I mean, I feel like there are towns everywhere across Texas where there are a few people in that town that know everybody, and it's probably a banker, you know what I'm saying, or something. But they know everybody. This seems almost too easy. But I know there could be one person that could screw the whole thing up because you got 5,000 acres here and 5,000 acres there and a big, cut in the middle of it or whatever. But I mean, people here in East Texas haven't seen turkeys in a long time. I would guess that pretty much people that are alive haven't really experienced much turkey action here in East Texas.
I've seen 2 wild turkeys in my life in East Texas. Yeah,
and so I would think that people would be all over this. But I didn't know anything about it until it was kind of pitched. Well, I knew he was working on it the last couple of months, and he pitched it to me recently. Hey, take this over and finish it out, So I think Casey and I are going to try to do that. But, I mean, this seems like a something that could be done in a lot of places, especially if you pair it up with like some of these WMAs in East Texas.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I know like they're doing that, and I guess it's something similar in the Caddo National Grasslands, which has been a big NWTF project, I think. You guys know anything
We
about?
have a $1.1 million challenge cost share agreement with the Caddo LBJ National Grasslands. Our West Texas district biologist is actually the one that is the project manager on that one. But that's a 5-year project, and we've already put $500,000 worth of work into that landscape. We've been doing mulching and eastern red cedar removal and adding
Black
new
locust,
fences.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. So we were out there hunting, and they were mulching black locust while we were turkey hunting.
Yeah.
So it was like great that they were doing it,
But we were like,
but it's a little problematic.
We're 2 miles back right now.
Yeah,
like
no.
we worked so hard to get in here. Yeah, it was not fun. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Well,
I'm
there's
trying
our
to-
transparency, though. Turkey hunters know we are active. We
That's
are
right.
we are working
Yep.
on the land.
If you're out there hunting them, you're gonna see somebody.
So I quizzed these guys up, the contractors, and I was like, so what are y'all doing this for? And like, oh, well, I think it's for the turkeys or something. I don't know. We're just out here to clear some brush.
Who was this?
Yeah.
I need to talk to them.
we can always do a better job
No.
of telling our story.
No, they were doing their job well. It's kind of like, the trickle down effect where like
Yeah.
they knew what they needed to do, and that's go find every black
Yeah.
locust and clear it. So they were doing a good job. But it's just kind of a funny thing. We rode our bicycles like way back in, and then these guys pull up in their trucks and go to work.
But we did see turkeys though.
We did.
On public land several times.
Were
a
you
few
on
times.
Caddo or LBJ?
LBJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can.
Yeah.
divulge that.
Don't
No.
worry. I'm going to divulge
There's
the
not
information.
enough for us to tell everybody where we were hunting.
Somewhere near some recent mulching, from what I gather.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
just go look for the habitat improvements. There'll be turkeys
Please don't
there.
look at aerials.
I feel like while he's looking that up, the Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt initiative is very smart and has a very great chance of working. And this is why I've thought about this a lot. And it's not just because I eat at Subway a lot, but okay.
Turkey.
Turkeys. Okay, exactly. Not every household, I would venture to say less than 1/3 of households have ever had venison in the household to eat, okay? I would venture to say that 95% of the households out there has something that says turkey on it in the refrigerator right now, right? People are familiar with turkeys. So it makes sense to people to say, hey, I'm going to go out and harvest a turkey because turkey is food. A lot of people think deer are Bambi, you know what I mean? And they don't want to shoot them. And there's that anthropomorphism thing going on there.
Disney.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Disney. Luckily, they've never really
Put
done
a turkey in there.
Disney thing. As far as I
Could
know.
y'all keep it down? Let's not
Don't
spark
give
any
them
ideas
ideas.
over at Pixar, if y'all don't mind.
The ghost of Walt is listening, right?
I don't think there's too many Pixar people listening
But
to
I feel
this.
like there's such a bridgeable gap there between the idea of turkey being food and people wanting to go hunt and like adding a passion to that, you know? So like what's the step to actually get the common person to understand that's what they need to be doing? Then they need to care, and they should like see that, hey, we want turkeys here so that we'll have, this food source and this ability to go out and gather our own.
Got to get them hunting first.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? 11% of people hunt, right? Or fish.
But
So-
I would mention there, I think what we get into terms of, and it's good because it's a call to action, but I think sometimes hunters like myself think, okay, it's us against the world. At least it's us against the rest of America, which really isn't the case. There's a much smaller number of anti-hunters than there are hunters. But as you mentioned, there's a very small number of hunters. So that leaves a wide swath of the American public who's like, yeah, okay, I think regulated hunting, that sounds probably fine. I think you may be onto something there that maybe a lot more people automatically think turkey and equate that with food and responsible harvesting and that sort of thing. But yeah, isn't that the challenge? It's not really trying to convert somebody who's against hunting. You can go ahead and forget that. But
Yeah, you're not going to get them.
yeah, but there are a lot of people who think, responsible hunting is good. What it comes down to is we need to get more people who are engaged in the sport to where they're paying into the Pittman-Robertson system, where they're buying hunting licenses and supplies and ammunition, that sort of thing. And on our end, with this nonprofit organization, like many others in the field, we need people who are willing to give of their time, not just their sponsor dollars, which we appreciate, but their time to bring their friends and family in, to bring their own families and say, I'm going to get my kids involved in this. They're going to help us throw this party for a bigger cause, and that's how we're going to bring up our kids in this next generation. And that's important because it may have always been this way, but at least today, people seem to be easier to write us a check to say, yeah, y'all are doing good work. Here's a little bit of my income. I'm willing to share that. Than they are say, I'll give you 2 hours every other week or whatever during the spring to help plan a banquet or whatever. But people's time is very, very valuable. So the people that we can get who are willing to share some of that and say, no, this is a really big deal and I can play a role in this. Maybe I'm not putting fire on the landscape because I don't have any land access, but you can help us fund putting fire on the landscape.
Sure.
You can help us fund all these projects that Annie does day in and day out.
I feel like every single person has a skill set, okay? And I'm going to narrow it down to 3. You've got financiers, okay, the people with the checkbook. You've got doers, people who, get a shovel, get a torch, and go do things. And then you've got leaders, people who can tell things, and encourage people to do things. And I feel like quite often, NGOs or conservation organizations or whatever, they tend to ask for the dollars a lot. And I think the National Wild Turkey Federation does a good job of this, but if we can take it further still, encourage people that, hey, just because you're not blessed financially or you don't have a bunch of time on your hands, you can still do something, and there's still like a niche for you. Yep. You know what I mean? I feel like even in my own life, like I'm not a wealthy person, and there's times when say, for instance, and this is tough to do, but say there's something way up north that needs saving, okay? And I can't really do much about it because I don't have the money to spread out to 17 different conservation organizations, okay? But there's still something I can do, and that's be a voice, and that's make sure that, that voice is heard on all my platforms, So how do we, encourage people to know that, hey, just because you don't have a bunch of money or you don't have land to work on, what can be done?
Yeah. I'd like to make a correction.
Okay.
I don't think it was 11%. It's like 11 million hunters. So whatever percentage that is.
It's a lot less. So I think 11% is hunt or fish. I think you were
maybe.
And then hunting is like 6.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. I didn't fact check it, but I just wanted to just make sure that people were fact checking me. So,
but I think we are fortunate that a lot of the people who don't hunt don't have anything against hunting. And in fact,
exactly.
Statistics show they're for it theoretically. They not only do they not have anything against it, but they think, yeah, sure, it seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
So it's really not as bad as we like to sometimes get up in arms about. Again, we're not going to change the opinions of anti-hunters, but we can grow our influence on the people who are already for it or who are ambivalent towards it or whatever, and that's where we can make the biggest impact on wild places and wildlife.
Okay, so I found it. Just wanted to make note of this, too, if anybody's interested in setting something up like this, since we're talking about volunteers. Interested parties must have management authority of the property. So
is that what your signature is? Like that they're signing over management authority to you?
Well, no, they just you just have to have management authority to make a signature. So I actually probably shouldn't have even read that part, but the sites. The sites. I'm trying to find. There's so much text.
You're reading the Eastern Wild Turkey fact sheet?
No, this is
sheet?
This is for the Eastern turkey stocking for the super stocking. Isn't it super stocking? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So sites interested in stocking must make a written request. I guess we're in the Stone Age. To Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Upland Game Program. So I'll in the show notes I'll make sure and add the. Well, I guess you could write in an email because there's an email address here. So we're not in the Stone Age. But
I think what they mean is don't call them and say, hey, I want some turkeys and hang up.
He gets those kind of calls all the time.
I guarantee you. I know. We talk about stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I'll put that in the notes so that if you're interested in setting something up like that, co-op, and getting turkeys in a place that you haven't ever seen them in, like we haven't in Rains County, or for me, so.
Yeah.
The hardest part for that super stocking is getting enough landowners to participate to get the 10,000.
Sure.
Once you get that going, it becomes a lot easier from there. But the process is pretty rigorous. You have to pass a GIS, Geographical Information Systems model, and in order to even go to the on-the-ground evaluation. So we do this habitat suitability index where I would come out and along with our Texas Parks and Wildlife upland game bird specialist and several other turkey people would come out and evaluate your land with our own eyes in our own expert opinions.
Turkey people.
Those turkey folks.
So like a Texas Parks and Wildlife private lands biologist or two,
Yeah.
and people like that.
So
Cool.
tell me this, 10,000 acres, right? Seems like a very arbitrary, even number, right? Okay, but then you say that you have, like, you come out and do a habitat evaluation. So why not 9,000 acres? Like, why, but good habitat. Like, why is that? Why do we have to have like that line of delineation of like you have to have at least 10,000? Is that a biological thing, or is that just like a hey, you got a good chunk of land kind of thing?
We just have to make sure that there's enough land that a turkey could survive on. They're based on their home range, which I don't remember off the top of my head right now. I know.
Yeah.
Slap me on the back of the hand. But based on their home range and how many turkeys we're stocking, how much of available habitat there is within that 10,000 acres, it all factors in.
So does that mean, like, if you get to 10,000 acres, but then y'all come out and say, this is all coastal Bermuda, it's not good?
No. I mean, you wouldn't even pass the GIS portion of the model.
Okay, so
can I have you evaluate this property before I take this project on? Because there's a lot of coastal Bermuda, for sure.
Well, there's also, I don't think it says it on the fact sheet, but there has to be a minimum of 5 acres per opening, and it can't be more than something. There has to be a certain percentage of forest within those 10,000 acres.
is there something in that, since we're talking about slash and burn so much, is there something in that clause that says to do this you have to institute a burning program or anything like that?
Nope.
No?
Really?
But we're going to see that. If you have been actively managing, you have been burning, you have been thinning, we are going to see that and say, okay, a turkey could live here.
Yeah.
I got you.
So if we go out there and it's mostly coastal Bermuda, you've never burned,
Gotcha.
but you did pass the GIS, we're going to see it and go, I don't think a turkey would live here, and you wouldn't pass. And that's happened before.
What's the cost on just like one super stocking?
Well, one bird is $525.
But that being said, obviously, you're talking about, I mean, Annie just described the man hours included on everything that goes towards that. So it's a pretty expensive process.
It is.
So,
Which is
but I
why we
mean,
don't take it lightly.
So if you get to the point of, you guys aren't managing it, is that like one of the last steps when you say like, okay, well, we're either going to put birds in this landscape or not? You know, I mean, when you go and you look at, it passes the GIS test, and then you go and look at it and you say whether they're managing it properly or not, or it's suitable. And then, would it be either a decision yay or nay? And if yay, we're going to start stocking birds in the next few months, or?
It's a point system. So when we go out there and look at it, we evaluate many different aspects of your property, and then it gets graded basically out of 100, and you pass if you're above 60. But then the average between all of us that were out there is what your final score is. And if you passed and you're in the priority area, based on the other co-ops that applied, we'll put you in a ranking system, and then that would determine who gets the birds first.
And so, will you get birds for sure if you pass? I mean,
No.
Not for sure.
Depends on whoever else.
Do you go on a wait list at
applied.
that point in time?
I don't. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
So they just stock by whenever they have the budget to buy the birds and take them out there, I guess.
Well, they're doing it every year. They've been doing it every year since 2014. So there is a budget for it.
Yeah.
And it's coming from the Upland Gaybird Stamp Fund. So people who are buying their Upland Gaybird stamps are paying for this.
All right.
All right.
So everyone is paying for this to happen.
And that being said, is another reason we take it very seriously, because we're talking about people's hard-earned dollars. And also, culturally, we don't want to get people's hopes up because they see us releasing birds onto 200 acres of Bermuda grass. And then the next year, they're like, well, didn't we just spend a lot of money to get birds on the landscape? And then you're like, well, yeah. So we want to give them a good shot so that people don't get kind of burnt out and say, well, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
We want to give it the highest chance.
We don't want to drop turkeys on the landscape willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to release birds that are going to die
You get a bird. Everyone gets a bird.
Oh, stop. That's funny.
We don't want to do that.
Yeah. So you talked about the Upland Game Bird Stamp, and that being where the funding for this comes from. It's popular as hunters to say, and this, don't get me wrong, Army F uses this term very well in some instances, but I feel like that the phrase hunting is conservation gets thrown around a lot nowadays. And in some scenarios, yes, through Pittman Robertson or Dingle Johnson and, Upland Game Bird Stamps like you're talking about now. But I feel like we're kind of past that point where that's enough. As the non-hunting population grows and we get smaller and smaller, our dollars go less and less as far, right? We're buying less and less stuff, or not less stuff, but just per capita probably the same, but there's more capitas, right? Okay, so that makes sense.
There's slippage in a little bit.
Slippage in there, but
We're not letting you live that one down.
I think that like the hunting is conservation is like a good starter point, but like hunting really isn't. Conservation so much more than that. Like you have to be an active steward, I think, and I think that just hunting and just buying your stamp or your license or buying your ammo and saying, oh, 9% of that went to conservation, I feel good about myself. That's not enough anymore. Yeah. And I feel like if we want to preserve this, save the habitat, save the hunt, like you're talking about, pass it on to the next generation, you're going to have to start doing more, and you're going to have to take this seriously, like if this is a culture that you want to perpetuate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it just depends on what you mean by hunting, right? So the way my father showed me through his actions what hunting was, it wasn't just going out into the woods and harvesting an animal, right? It was working all summer to prepare your land or plant your chufas for the spring turkey season. Never mind. I'm showing my South Alabama feathers here, but it meant being out in the woods doing conservation work, and it also meant growing this tribe, this community of sports people, and passing on the sport. So to him, hunting was never just, and if it was when he was in his teens, and even then he was doing it with his father. It was a family-type, communal-type experience. So, I would say you're absolutely right. If hunting just means to you sneaking out by yourself, harvesting an animal and never telling anybody else where your honey hole is, and you don't want anybody else getting into the sport because you might lose it, obviously, yes, you are buying a hunting license, and we appreciate it, and it's dollars for Annie's habitat work. I agree with you. That's probably not conservation equally. It doesn't equal conservation. On the other hand, if you view hunting as a year-round, active conservation lifestyle where you're bringing other people into the fold to try to mitigate the amount of hunters we're losing from the population every year, then, yeah, I would say, sure, hunting is conservation, but hunting has to be a year-round, out-of-season experience for you and your family and the tribe around you.
It has to be a culture, not an action.
Right, absolutely. It can't just be a one-day in deer season type thing.
Yeah, I like it.
I feel like that generations that preceded us, a lot of them not probably like your family. I mean, it was just something you did because you needed meat, and like.
We come from a culture in East Texas of subsistence hunting.
Yes,
like people did that. My granddad's generation.
That's what I was thinking of. I didn't want to call him out on the podcast or nothing, but his generation for sure. Not that Pop's like that, but like, that it was just something you did, and because it was just for meat. Whereas now we have supermarkets and stuff. Because it was just for meat, a lot of people did it. Well, the need's not there anymore, and as you guys know, fast food restaurants are everywhere. People don't have time for things. They don't have time to volunteer for NWTF. The culture now has gone to, well, get my food and it's going to be super processed or whatever. But I'm just not going to think about it, whatever. And because I got things to do. My boss is all up on top of me trying to get me to do something. And so I think that it definitely makes it a battle for us. Because we're starting to figure out that hunting is not convenient anymore. It's not something that really gives you everything you need when you can get everything you need pretty much now.
On that, what's the National Wild Turkey Federation doing to make hunting more convenient? What about access? I feel like that's where we lose a lot of people is on the access. I mean, I know a bunch of people like from high school in my general area, and even in college, it's kind of different because you're all compiled in one big city, but you get it. Like, access is limited, especially in our part of the state, in the state of Texas.
Texas in general,
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, what are we, 2% huntable public lands or less, or 1.7 or something? Like, it's not to get depressing here, but like access is tough, So like, how do we increase that? How do you, like, for instance, there's these great states in the Midwest that have all these walk-in hunter access programs. I would love to have some of that access around here, but we just don't. We have a little bit of it, but like it's not common. Like, how do we perpetuate that, make that grow?
Well, so not only does Annie do habitat work, but she does save the hunt work too on some of our public lands. She can talk a little bit about some of our recent projects from last year.
One of our big projects was on Lake Ray Roberts public hunting land, and we had $75,000 from from our state Superfund and Texas Parks and Wildlife, where they gave us the money to go in and rehabilitate basically some access areas. So we worked on 7 access areas, redid the parking lots, added new fencing, added new signs, made it way more accessible for a wide variety of people. And then it was so successful that they gave us another $15,000 to do several more access areas. So this is planning to be an ongoing project in the future, and that was just year 1.
Sure.
But we're also lucky in Texas because we have 3 private lands leasing biologists that
On
work for
staff.
us.
Yeah, for NWTF.
Really?
Yes. And so this year alone, they gained access to 20,000 acres plus another 14,000 with Texas Parks and Wildlife. So there was 34,000 acres total of private lands that were open leases for public hunting.
For turkeys in particular?
For anything.
So-
There were pronghorn, there were quail, there were dove.
And
But
because
there's
of
still
that,
private ownership.
yeah,
Yes.
but for the $42 or whatever it is that you pay for your public lands permit, you have access to those private lands that are being leased through this program
Yes.
as well. And again, that's your NWTF and your Pittman Robertson dollars at work for having those people on staff to court those landowners, to walk them through the process, to incentivize the program. And so yeah, your monies that we're raising at these local banquets are turning around, being leveraged by people like Annie, and are getting you into more places in Texas. Culturally, Texas is not a place where people want other people on their land.
Yeah, no.
And Texas
Tried door knocking a little bit
is
around
a
here. It
state
didn't work.
because people wanted their own land and they didn't want anybody else on it.
That's right.
And so we have to, as hunters, we have to work around that culture a tad. But anyway, that's Texas. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
So that's cool. So I feel like, land is a set commodity, right? We only have so much land. And I kind of think that what you do is NWTF there's never going to be a lot more land to access, right? But if you can improve the access that you already have, like you're talking about with Ray Roberts, and improve how many birds are in that place and improve the quality of experience.
That's a big thing, I think.
Like if you can, for instance, like some of the turkey hunts we've been on, like it was fun. Don't get me wrong, we love being in the woods, but you don't see a lot of birds, right? But if you can improve that, that's also access, right?
Yeah. To me, that's a huge deal. Like, we've seen family members and friends and such start to kind of follow our journey and therefore go hunt some public land or something like that, and have very little success. So we had little success, and we put a lot of work into it this year, and to me, if you are, luckily, like we have grown up in a hunting culture, hunting families, and I feel like, we've put a lot of work into it, so we know, okay, well, maybe it was just this that didn't happen for us that day. So, we can kind of decide like, okay, well, we did this wrong or whatever. Well, if you're a first-year hunter or whatever, you don't have a clue what you did wrong. You don't have a clue what you did right if it happens for you. Right. And so, even for me, a guy who's hunted my whole life just about, how many times did I get depressed out there this year?
How many times did we go?
Yeah, exactly. about 99%. So, like you go out there and you sit in a perfect spot. You've got like trail camera info where your deer are showing up almost every day, and somehow, the wind's perfect for you. It's blowing back over a creek or whatever. There's no way they could have winded you, and you don't see a deer, and it's like, I don't know what what's happening here. And if I told him, I was like, if I think about it, and I was a first or second year hunter, I would not do this again. That's the absolute truth. I would not do this again. I'd be like, what's so fun about this? I froze my butt off in the stand all day and didn't see a single thing, but it's a couple squirrels, and just, man, that's frustrating. So I think like, especially on public lands, because public lands is the best access for people who don't have funds, and so I think improving the number of game animals on those public lands is a huge deal for me,
Yep.
Well, I know I wouldn't have gone hunting at Lake Ray Roberts if that's what the access sites looked like, because there was trash everywhere. We found dead dogs, needles, old TVs. It was awful. It's just, and when people see that there's mattresses and TVs and trash on the ground, they're like, oh, okay, we can dump here. But if it's well taken care of, it looks nice, there's nice signs, nice kiosks, then people are going to be more likely to use it and take care of it and recognize that as one of their own resources because it is public land. And then it will be better for everyone in
Yeah,
the
sure.
long
Talk
run.
about that first-time hunter. If they show up now after the work that Annie and her partners have done to make those access, and they see that sign that's basically saying, welcome hunters, this is for you, then they realize the whole idea of public lands in the first place.
Yep.
This is for you. You own it. You own it just like Annie does and just like Tyler and everybody. I mean, that's a pretty cool American idea to me. And so when you walk in and you see this nice parking spot and a little directory billboard that says who sponsored the work and that sort of thing, it makes me as a first-time hunter think, okay, I'm doing at least something right. I'm in the right spot.
Well, I mean, you sat there and prepped for however many months to get ready to go hunting. You bought gear. It's all nice and new. And then you show up to a dump, well, I don't know. This is my land, That's kind of not like anything I own, I take care of my stuff. So, I mean, I totally get that. Plus, I mean, how many people are probably worried that their truck's going to get broke into or something while they're out there,
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's another big deal.
Even if they aren't successful, because you're walking a fine line. Like, you don't want to make it easy for people, because then it's like a facsimile of what hunting really is, right? You don't want to overstock an area with animals, and then it's like, oh, this is pin shooting, like this is not the same thing. But at the same time, if you can go and make their experience enjoyable, like be able to park your truck, like where you're going, you see 17 squirrels, 3 rabbits, and 14 cardinals while you're out there, like it's a great experience. It's fun, and that's what hunting is all about. And if we're encouraging people to get out with other individuals and go enjoy, hunting culture, as opposed to like making all the emphasis on the harvest or on the kill, then we're getting somewhere.
So,
it's an experience.
Yeah.
I guess to kind of, I hate to just like pose. This is such a like conservation thing to do, but just pose like something that's terrible, like we talked about earlier, and like just leave it at that. Like, well, it's just okay. Well, there's the problem. I don't know. Maybe it's just who I am, but I'm always trying to come up with a logical answer. So, what is the state or NWTF doing to manage those lands? Obviously, probably a lot of them need slash and burn. I know for a fact a lot of the lands we've been on needs quite a bit of burning.
My britches tell me they do.
Yes, they're torn up with greenbrier.
Yes.
So I mean, do you guys have a clue what how the state is going to? Do they plan to manage that stuff a little better from a burning standpoint?
Well, little by little, we're chipping away at it. We have 5 projects going on with the Forest Service down on Angelina, Sabine, and Sam Houston National Forest. We have this big project going on with Caddo LBJ. We're working on several. I think we have 18 WMAs that we're working on in the state. Plus, we also have several private lands projects going on. We have our Northeast Texas Conservation Delivery Network just started a habitat incentive program where people can apply for money from Texas Parks and Wildlife. It's administered through us, the Turkey Federation, where people can apply to have habitat management stuff done on their property. And so last year we had 7 different projects, and we spent $140,000 on private land to
That's
help
awesome.
people purchase native seed, mulch, herbicide, burn.
Is there a
and all of
homepage for that?
I don't know if there's a website or not.
We'll
for
try
that.
to link to something to that, because that's super cool.
What are the requirements for? Because I feel like that could be kind of a maybe not super likable idea for people who are maybe anti-government a bit,
Right. Well, we came across that a lot last year, but since people were signing the agreement with us, the National Wild Turkey Federation, they were way more inclined to do this and accept this money to help them.
And so the private land has to be a sizable chunk, I would imagine.
There's a
right?
ranking system for that, too.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a request for proposals just came out, and you can talk to your local private lands biologist with Texas Parks and Wildlife. They're the ones that should be administering those. They would help you come up with a habitat management plan if you don't have one already on your property, and then they would help you write this proposal to submit to. It's with National Wild Turkey Federation and the Lower Mississippi Alluvial Valley Joint Venture. And so...
Were they at the TRCP?
Yes,
I think
actually,
they
they
were.
did a presentation.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're working all together to get this habitat incentive program. And since it was so successful last year, Texas Parks and Wildlife has agreed to give us another $160,000, I think it. No. That's wrong. What's 60 plus 60? 120,000.
It's after 5.
Man.
You don't do math.
I clocked out a while ago.
Oh, that's good.
A large sum.
So they gave us another $120,000 to put directly into private lands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get the burning done and get the native seeds planted and
That's
do all
awesome.
I mean, so
we're chipping away at it.
Right, and obviously that they're putting a high priority on private lands as being a big part of the conservation effort within this. I mean, especially since it's Texas and we have mostly private
That's
lands.
right, and it may sound weird to people who are outside of Texas, your listeners all across the country, but in Texas, again, we're talking about if we're going to do work on the land, then
gonna be private.
Some of it has to be. It has
sure.
to be,
Yeah.
and obviously, what's good for a turkey next door is obviously good for your turkeys on your property too. So, and that same goes for Bob White's to whitetail.
Yeah.
Yep. So if we've inspired somebody or somebody just has their volunteerism just on fire, how can they kind of put that to action? What can they do?
Yeah, well, so wherever you're listening, you can go to NWTF.org, click the events, get involved tabs. There's all kind of great information there about the habitat work we're doing and how to get involved and save the habitat, save the hunt locally. Obviously, if you're right here in East Texas, you can holler at me, send me an email at jharris@nwtf.net, and I can let you know where your nearest local chapter is. And if for some reason there's not one real close by, you can help us start one in your own local community. But we're pretty well spread out across East Texas, and we can plug you in with the great volunteers we've already got going there. I'll say that, people are the same people who complain to me about not having any time, particularly people between the age of like 12 and 12. Very busy 12-year-olds. Between the age of like 20 to 40, I would say they say I don't have any time, and then they also say I have a really hard time meeting people in my age group, between 20 and 35 or 20 and 40 or whatever. This is a great opportunity to meet people who care about similar things as you. If you've got young kids or whatever, and you're looking for a way to get involved with your whole family, something like this is great. Have them help you do something like this, and they can come to our committee meetings and come to our banquets, and it's a cool thing. So check the website NWTF.org. Shoot me an email, jharris@nwtf.net, and that'll be in your notes. I'm hoping.
Yeah, for sure. We'll put it in the notes right underneath this podcast. So if you're listening, do that. Anything you got to add to that as a plug for yourself or the National Wild Turkey Federation?
Well, we have a ton of projects going on in East Texas. It's a gold mine for conservation. And if you have any ideas, if you want to know where our projects are, if you want to know what we've got going on, you can contact me at afarrell@nwtf.net, and I will definitely fill you in on anything that's going on.
And I'll put that in the notes as well.
You can go to nwtf.org and the In Your Area tab, and you can find all of the contacts for Texas.
Cool. So you have
any other state.
and you have the chance to be, if you're a Texan, which a lot of you guys out there listening are, you have a chance to be a part of like a pretty epic conservation story. You know what I'm saying?
This is
East
where
Texas
it's exciting.
is on the forefront.
Yeah, no doubt.
The rest of the country has already done all of this, and we're 30 years behind, but we are getting there.
But we're the cool kids at the table right there. No doubt.
We are.
I mean, right now we're doing the fun stuff for sure.
We're the ones that are releasing the turkeys out of boxes and reestablishing.
You guys don't know, but how fun would it have been to grow up with turkeys to kind of hunt every once in a while? You know what I'm saying?
Goodness.
I mean, I didn't have much, private land to hunt deer on around here. We always hunted out of state because it was easier to find land for cheaper, or whatever. But as far as big game goes, I wasn't doing it in high school. I was pretty much a waterfowl hunter, because there was public lakes, and so to have turkeys, you can't. It's hard to convince somebody to go, hey, let me come shoot one of those Bambis on your property. And whether or not they're that kind of person or not, it's still like this big animal that you're taking off my property, whereas a turkey's kind of like it's kind of big for us, but it's kind of also like, it's like this little bird for some people, So I feel like it's one of those gateway species that could kind of really help people get into hunting. It could help you to get onto a property to maybe eventually hunt deer on that property, you know, or whatever. And it would have been awesome just to, see a flock as you're running through a coastal Bermuda pasture one day and, shoot them with a shotgun or whatever. I mean, that's part of it. And I know
That's what we're working for.
Yeah, you're working.
We want to get there.
So what's the consensus, or where are you at as far as your hunting of turkey? Like, when are you gonna get into that?
Me,
that whole side of things?
personally?
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go this year.
Are you?
All right.
I know we didn't say it on the podcast, but I've never hunted turkeys,
Yes.
and I feel like I need to.
Yes.
If I'm going to be a turkey biologist,
That's right.
I need to go turkey
Have you
hunting.
been there for like the experience or anything? Like just not
No.
no. So
I
you've
just
never
it's another one of those things where I just have never had the opportunity. I didn't get into hunting until I was in college, and
Yeah.
I hunted for 4 years before I got my first deer. Even. And so I've been in it because I want to be in it.
Yeah.
Even though some of
Right.
the experiences
you-
weren't the best.
Did anybody kind of push you into that, or was that just all you?
It was all me really in college, and I was surrounded. I got a wildlife degree, and so I was surrounded with people that hunted, and I had always wanted to go, and luckily I had friends that were willing to take me and help me figure out how to do it.
Cool.
So if you don't, I've never had someone though that turkey hunted and has taken me to do that, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go this year.
Awesome.
We have a lot of turkeys in the state, just
Yeah.
not where we live.
Hey, I bet she's
Yep.
got some contacts.
I bet she does.
I know where the turkeys are.
I
in
bet
the
you
state.
do.
Well, we just released them here,
I have
so
a
they should be
location.
3 miles away.
Yes, exactly. Should be easy to call in too.
Yeah. Well, I know y'all are busy folks and got a lot of stuff going on. But is there anything you want to leave us with, just kind of as a final thought?
Well, first of
anything?
all, Jackson, are you a musician?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
What's up, bro?
I do pick and sing a little bit.
Come on now.
Yeah.
What about a plug for that?
There we
Yeah,
go.
I get around East Texas from time to time. Not all of my songs are turkey themed, but yeah.
If they are, I'll go listen to them.
Yeah, if you ever see a chalkboard somewhere that says Asa J. Harris is playing somewhere, that's me.
Cool, man.
But yeah, no, save the habitat, save the hunt. That's what Annie and I both work on day in and day out. And the more people we can get, as a member of the flock, we'll take them.
yeah.
Is that a company thing? Member of the flock? I
Yeah,
feel like that would
we
be-
say welcome to the flock
Yeah,
a lot. It's
I
kind of
like
what
it.
we do.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
So when people like join your street team for your music, is that flock as well, or what do you call them?
Well, we're still working. If you want to be the president of the flock, you can be, because that position is open.
yeah.
I wish I had a following big enough to have to worry about what
You
we would
said-
call it.
You said tribal ago, and I saw his ears perk up because his
Yeah.
band's called Tyler and the Tribe.
Yeah,
He's like, oh,
sure.
I like it when people say tribe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, yeah. So now we can go through. If there's anything else, I guess you kind of plugged what you want. Anything you want to leave us with?
I think Jackson hit it on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. I'm about to order a pizza.
Thanks, guys.
Man,
It smells good.
It does.
thanks for hanging out with us,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm a little bit more ready to turkey hunt after that.
Yeah, me too. Okay, now they got me thinking, got me a little pumped.
Yeah, that was a cool interview for sure. A cool atmosphere where we were at, and I don't know. I love turkey hunting, and I guess last year we had such a tough time on public here in Texas that like it kind of got us to this point where we were like, man, this is frustrating, because you're just, I don't know. One thing that's hard for me is like I can justify going and spending money and not shooting something if I'm chasing that animal and having a good time the whole time. When I'm going to have a good time either way most of the time. But if I don't have an animal to chase and I'm just walking through the woods for 3 days, like chasing ghosts, that can be kind of tough,
Yeah.
So
It can. I mean, that's why elk hunting's fun because you still like you hear that faint bugle or something like that, and you're like, there's some here, And then, gosh, when you go, 2 or 3 days without seeing a gobbler or hearing a gobble, it gets pretty depressing.
yeah,
But,
especially when you're
what-
talking about like the payoff being like 4 pounds of meat, or whatever.
but it's the experience you're chasing. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
And
for sure.
And I
For
want that still. So I'll bet I'll probably still find a way to make it or
Yeah.
make the hunt happen this
Yeah.
year at least. Which, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a very experienced turkey hunter. I'm still learning how to do stuff. I don't quite understand like how you treat turkeys that are on the roost or that kind of thing. So I'm just it was cool to talk to them and at least learn a little bit about, hey, there actually might be more turkeys out there than what you think there are.
For sure, man. They have a way of not letting you know they're there for such a vocal animal sometimes,
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate those guys coming on and doing this with us. And I guess last thing I would say here is make sure, if you're enjoying this kind of stuff, the stuff we're putting out, we would appreciate a review on iTunes or on Facebook. And that's my plug.
There you go. And then also make sure that you're paying attention to our YouTube channel this time of year because a lot of cool stuff coming out. Just because it ain't hunting season doesn't mean we're not putting out content. So I noticed that the Small Game Saturday PLC has been doing pretty good. People have liked that pretty well.
Yeah.
So if you hadn't seen that, go check it out. We shoot a couple of Or I guess we shot one rabbit and a couple squirrels.
I missed a rabbit.
Yeah, you missed a rabbit. Shot at a
Well,
rabbit.
I wouldn't have missed him if it wasn't for the tree. Let's just go ahead and get that straight.
Those darn cedar elms.
Yeah, I was all over him. You know what I mean? Those guys are crazy. But anyway, I guess anything else?
That's all I know.
Okay, that's all I know too. So
Yeah.
thank y'all for listening. God bless you. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.
But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all? T. Jones, the red-nosed reindeer, had a very rough, raw nose.
I've noticed you switched to toilet paper instead of all those paper towels.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.